Good to see you too. Good to be here. Rabbi, can I start?
Wait another bit.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Today I'd like to introduce you a completely different kind of song, and it's written by the famous compositor and musician Shlomo Gronich to the words of Chaim Idisis. Now, in 1991, Shlomo Gronich established, if you've heard about them, the Sheba Choir. So it's made of immigrant children from the Ethiopian community of all ages, starting I think at 4, he had the littlest one, and he took some of these orphaned kids and some other kids that were not orphaned, but just came, didn't have education, didn't have society, didn't have community, didn't have anything. He gave them music, he gave them food, he gave them clothes, and he performed with them across the country. He was the first. No, he just took this choir. He still is a composer, and he was the first musician in Israel, or maybe one of the first, to bring the story of the Ethiopian Jews through these performers and with them. So Chaim Idisis, the writer, sat down with the kids and wrote their stories about their aliyah to Israel, and he made the lyrics out of it with all their stories knitted together. And it's the story of 16,000 immigrants, brave Jews that walked by foot the desert to get to Israel in the mid-1980s and the beginning of the 1990s. The names of, it was Mivtza Shlomo, right?
Moses and then Solomon.
Moses and
yes.
Solomon operations, and the difficulties they faced in the journey unfortunately took the lives of a lot of their relatives who died in the desert because of either the lack of food or the heat or some of the Sudanese soldiers. And yet, as depicted in this song, they kept holding to the hope, remembering themselves again and again, just a little bit further, I'm quoting, just a little bit more, then we will be redeemed, we will not stop until we reach the land of Israel. Unfortunately, their arrival to Israel did not end the hardship of the Ethiopians' journey. The chief rabbinate of Israel refused to recognize a lot of them as Jews. And till this very day, many of them are still struggling with integrating in the Israeli society. More about this later in the service. And now this beautiful song written by the children, the Ethiopian children. Stars and moon are watching above. On my back, the little food that we have. Only desert ahead, we are endlessly walking. And my mother reassures my younger siblings. Very soon, just a little more. Force your feet up. One more effort before we reach Jerusalem. Hold on moonlight at any cost. Our sack of food had already been lost. The terrain doesn't change, only desert we're seeing. And my mother keeps soothing my younger siblings. Very soon, just a little more. We will soon be redeemed, and we won't stop walking till we reach Israel. Then at night time, the robbers attacked. Against sharp swords, my mother's bare hands can't act. Her blood blurred in the sand while we kept on running, and I found myself promising my younger siblings. Very soon, just a little more, our dream will come true. We will soon reach the land of Israel. In the moon, I can see my mom smile. She looks at me, Mother, stay for a while. If you were still with me, if this could have been true, maybe you could convince them I'm really a Jew. Very soon, just a little more, we will soon be redeemed. We won't stop hoping to be in Israel. Very soon, just a little more. Raising our eyes, one more effort before we reach Jerusalem.
Shabbat Shalom. I want to thank Iris for that beautiful song and the English lyrics that she worked on. We will be hearing more later on in the service about the unfinished exodus of the Ethiopian Jewish community to Israel. With so much happening in Israel these days, this story which has had important developments just in the last few weeks, has really flown under the radar, and that's unfortunate. Meanwhile, we will now continue with our welcome of Shabbat with Lecha Dodi on page 20.
And this is the special Lecha Dodi that we sing on Shabbat Chazon a week before Tisha B'Av. So here we go. I think you know it. Lecha Dodi mikrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi mikrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, yishmi'anu el am yuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, l'Shem u'ltifaret v'l'tila. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki yimkom lecha, merosh mikadev nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techiva. The next page, התעוררי, התעוררי. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שתעוררי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. For Rabbi Shalom, please rise. רואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה.
We remain standing for our call to worship, the Baruch Hu, page 28. Please be seated. On page 31, praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of the tide of time and light. You guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'ma'ariv aravim. from the world around us to the world within us, Ahavat Olam. Page 32. We join together in the Shema and the V'ahavta.
Shema
Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed Ve'ahavta
Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך
היום על לבבך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך
וקשרתם לאות על ידיך
והיו לטוטפות
בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות
ביתך ובישעריך
למען תזכרו
ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים
לאלוהיכם
אני
אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים
Ani Adonai Elohechem. On page 41, sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect. The song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. On the previous page, the song of peace and freedom, the Exodus, Mi Chamocha. When we had our recent calendar meeting to plan the entire calendar for next year, an issue came up about when were we going to put up our sukkah? Because the Sunday before, when we always do it, is actually Erev Yom Kippur in that evening. We decided it's not going to be school that day. That's going to be our only opportunity to put up the sukkah. Why am I mentioning it? Because in the next prayer, the Hashkivenu prayer, twice there's the metaphor of spreading the Sukkot Shalom, the Sukkah of peace over us. And if you look at the last verse of this prayer, it talks about spreading that Sukkah of peace, that canopy of peace, over 3 levels. Over us personally, then it says, Amo Yisrael, Kol Amo Yisrael, over our people, and then it says, over Jerusalem, symbol of the land of Israel. Because we personally, our community, our people, and our homeland all need the Sukkot Shalom. Hashkivenu. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom
V'hamodeinu
Baruch Ata Adonai Hapores Sukat Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Amo Yisrael Ve'al Yerushalayim. Maybe part of the state of peace, of the canopy of peace being spread over us, is facilitated by the observance of Shabbat, which is supposed to be a day of peace and wholeness and reconciliation. On page 44, the people of Israel shall keep Shabbat, observing Shabbat throughout the ages as a covenant for all time.
You're not with me. Let's try again.
לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורות ברית עולם הניחו את בני ישראל אותי לעולם
As you know, in the Amidah prayer that follows, we very explicitly connect ourselves to our ancestors, to our patriarchs, and to our matriarchs. Page 46, we rise.
Ufi וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל, אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל. מחלקל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדום נלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. Are you ready for another special musical moment? Please turn to page 59.
I asked the Rabbi the permission to bring to you a new song that was inspired and written for a rabbi I appreciate a lot, and that gave me a lot of opportunities and a lot of spirituality for my career. So obviously this became a soul song, but I still made it a little Jewish with some nusach motifs. So let's see if you like it. God of goodness, we give thanks to the gift of life. God of goodness, wonder beyond words. Thanks
I stand in awe of musical composers. How do they do it? Where does it come from? Beautiful thing. Let's read those words together in English. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within. The world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. And it's always beautiful to conclude the Amidah with the great prayer of peace, Shalom Rav, page 60. Now at the end of the Amidah, our thoughts turn to those of our loved ones in need of healing, be this a healing of body or healing of soul. In our own congregational family, we think especially on this Shabbat, Miriam Wohl. And as I walk around, if you would like to name a loved one for this healing prayer, please do so.
all of spirit, and let us say,
The name of last week's Torah portion, the last portion in the book of Numbers, was Masayeh, which means journeys. This week we begin Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, and Moses speaks about the journeys of the Israelites, recounting every stop along the way in the 40-year journey from Egypt to the banks of the Promised Land. And Moses very carefully spares nothing. He recounts all the high points, but also all the low points, all the challenges in that two-generation journey. Moses wants us to remember that we learn from the high points and the low points, the peaks and the valleys of our journey. We pause. Speaking of journeys, the journey of the Ethiopian Jewish community from Ethiopia to Israel is really a remarkable chapter in modern Jewish history and the history of the state of Israel. It was back in 1973 that an enormously influential Sephardic rabbi, matter of fact, the chief Sephardic rabbi at the time, Ovadia Yosef in Israel, issued a ruling, a halakhic psak din ruling, and I can't emphasize how important it was, because he ruled that Beta Yisrael, that the Jews of Ethiopia were in fact Jews. There was no question about it, and that we should be doing everything to bring them to the land of Israel as they desire. We had known since the middle of the 19th century that there was a remote, isolated Jewish community in the Cantor province of Ethiopia, up there in the highlands, that under tremendous duress and extreme conditions had clung to their Judaism. Nobody really knows how old the community is, but it goes back at least 500 years. Some people say all the way back to the biblical times as well. 7 years after that ruling, the Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, with a great deal of help from President George H.W. Bush, began bringing Ethiopian Jews via Sudan to the land of Israel. The big operation occurred, the first of the two, as Iris had mentioned, Operation Moses from 1983 to 1985, and then Operation Solomon in 1991. In that second operation in 1991, American Jewish donors, in a very short period of time, raised $35 million, which was paid as a bribe to the Mengistu regime to let the Jews go, the remaining Jews of Ethiopia. The Israelis, you may have seen one of several films about this and read about it. I've talked about it before. Were given a single weekend to get the Jews out. A single weekend. In the space of 36 hours, 14,325 Beta Yisrael Ethiopian Jews were flown to Israel in a non-stop operation. And in one case, 1,086 passengers flew on one plane, a Boeing 747. By the way, they have been taken out of operation now. A Boeing 747, the seats were removed. They sat on the floor, crammed together, and that is the single record for the most people on an airplane to this day. There was a baby born midair, by the way. And so, the end of the story, a triumph, right? All done. Not quite. Because there was another group of Jews called Flaxman, who had more recently returned to Judaism. These were the descendants of Jews who, under duress, had converted to Christianity, admittedly so, but never intended to, like you've heard about the conversos in Spain, and were now reclaiming their Judaism and living as Jews. And in many cases, they were blood relatives of the Jews who had gone to Ethiopia already. And so ever since then, there has been the issue, who are these Jews? Are they truly Jews? Are they Jewish enough for the state of Israel to bring them to Israel? It's been going on for the last almost 30 years since Operation Solomon. And the pendulum has swung back and forth. There hasn't been any mass aliyah program. The Israeli government, depending on who was leading it, and the Knesset coalition, would admit a few hundred here, a few hundred there. It brings me to the article that created a stir just a few weeks ago in the New York Times by the esteemed columnist Bret Stephens. You might have seen it. It was called Israel's Unfinished Exodus. Here's how he begins. I'm on an Ethiopian Airlines jet flying from Addis Ababa to Tel Aviv. With us on the plane are 111 Ethiopian immigrants to Israel who are among the very last of the 5,000 Ethiopians that the Jewish state has agreed to welcome since 2020 in the name of family reunification, with the requirement that they have at least one first-degree relative, that means a parent, a sibling, or a child, already in Israel. By June, this chapter of Aliyah, last month, will end, and the door to Ethiopians will be closed, at least for now. So we finally reached the rest of the Jews of Ethiopia in this final group of airlifts, right? Wrong. Here's Bret Stephens' next sentence. The problem is, there are still anywhere from 9,000 to 12,000 people in Ethiopia who practice Judaism and believe themselves to be Jews, even if the state of Israel believes their family ties to Judaism are too weak. I can tell you that they are in Addis Ababa and in Cantor. They live among themselves, and they have been practicing Judaism for years, in some cases now for decades. 9,000 to 12,000. Has the Jewish responsibility to bring the Jews of Ethiopia to Israel as they desire, has it run its course? Has it come to an end? Or do we have a continuing obligation to people who, under harsh conditions and extreme poverty to today, continue to live as Jews in every way and desire to live in the land of Israel, and who are, if not first degree connected to the Ethiopian Jews, a second or third degree? With everything going on in Israel, Bezalel Smotrich, who is the leader of the far right, you've heard that name already. This is his opinion. This practice, he says, will develop into a demand to bring more and more family members not included in the law of return. It will open the door to endless extension of a family chain from all over the world. He and others, not just on the far right, continue to question the authenticity of these people and their right to come to Israel under the law of return. What is going to happen? Israel's politics is in such turmoil that it's impossible to know about this unfinished chapter in a modern-day Exodus. Why do I bring it up again now? And I've talked about the Jews of Ethiopia many times over the years. For me, as you know, it's not just the ethical imperative for all of us as Jews. It's a deeply personal story. I lived in Israel during Operation Moses. I welcomed these people to Haifa, Israel, to the Leo Beck Center personally. Part of my job as the rabbi of the Leo Beck Center was to welcome them to their life in Israel. And then in 1986, when I was drafted into the Israeli army, into an immigrant unit, 90% of my unit was Ethiopian. And just a small 10% of us from the rest of the world, and 2 of us in the entire division were even English speakers. But firsthand, I experienced the army with them, life in Israel with them, and with them, and other representatives from the Leo Beck Center, we marched to Jerusalem with them for the first of their demonstrations, for equal recognition of their kesim, of their religious leaders in Israel. So for me, it's always been a deeply personal story. During that time, as some of you know, I collected pillowcases, handmade pillowcases that the Ethiopian Jews in Addis Ababa were creating to sustain themselves while waiting to make Aliyah in Operation Moses and then Operation Solomon. And then, as you know, downstairs, and you can look again at it, I just had a Korean friend come over to the synagogue this week, very Christian, and he could appreciate all the biblical scenes. He wanted to know all about this tapestry. I explain it to the children every time. Debbie, with her skill, put all those pillowcases, each one with 40,000 stitches per square, into the tapestry. And then, as you know, I wrote a children's book based on the tapestry. And I'm happy to say, in a wonderful coincidence, that today I concluded a donation to the Struggle to Save Ethiopian Jewry, the American organization working to bring these Jews who still remain in Ethiopia, to donate 100 copies of my book to this organization. They're going to use it as a fundraiser. If you give a certain amount of money to the organization, you will receive a gratis copy of the book. So the struggle to save the Ethiopian Jewish community, to bring all those who see themselves as Jewish, who live Jewish lives under great challenge, goes on. And I hope that I can stand here in another year or 2 and say to you, the chapter, the unfinished chapter, has finally been concluded. Shabbat Shalom. Well, Leah has now sat up, so I know that she might be available to help her brother open the ark door for the Aleinu prayer. Yes, I am correct in that regard. The bottom of page 282. If you are able, please rise. On this Shabbat, we now call to mind and love and reverence those recently taken from our midst during the Shoshim, the past 30 days. Bill Grinker, brother of Rachel Stern, uncle of Sidney Stern. And on this Shabbat, in love and reverence, the Yortzeit, the anniversary of the passing of Betty Straight, mother of Lance Straight. Carl Klein, father of Richard Klein. Barnett Mitzman, father of Judy Aronson. Robert Rosenberg, father of Mark Rosenberg. Jerry Alpern, husband of Enid Alpern. On this Shabbat, we join together in love and reverence for all those close to our hearts and for all those for whom there may be no one to say Kaddish, the Kaddish prayer on page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi be'alma divra chilutei v'yamlich malchutei v'hayechon uvyomechon uvchaye d'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mivorach le'olam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarak v'yishtabak v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. Tadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran ve'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'hayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen. Shalom b'imromav, say shalom aleinu. Yisrael. Please be seated. Michael?
Shabbat Shalom. Good to see everybody. Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you for bringing us up to date concerning the plight of our fellow Jews in Ethiopia. We appreciate that. And by the way, you can see a great interview of Rabbi Schwartz on YouTube regarding his new book, Open Judaism. You just search for Rabbi Barry Schwartz. That's Rabbi Barry Schwartz, and the video will appear. And thank you, student Cantor Iris Collin, for your beautiful melodies, some of them original, some of them ancient, some of them current. Thank you so much. Next week's service will be led by Lance and by student Cantor Iris Collin while the rabbi travels. And Lance, will you be bringing us Devar Torah? Of course. And if you've ever heard Lance's Devar Torahs, they are a PhD course, each one. Our next outdoor Shabbat service and picnic will be on August 4th with a 6 p.m. start. That'll be on the patio, and we expect beautiful weather. Isn't that correct? Yes. The Adas Emuno Book Club, which meets in September is reading Who by Fire, Leonard Cohen in the Sinai by Maddie Friedman, which is an account of Leonard Cohen's time in Israel during the Yom Kippur War of 1973. Our annual gathering in the garden takes place on Sunday, August 13th, beginning at 4 p.m. Give some thought to who you'd like to invite to this fun event, the purpose of which is to acquaint prospective members with the Adas Emuno community. Details concerning the gathering will follow shortly. The great Nitwits will be meeting this Monday on the patio at 7 p.m., and Annette has guaranteed perfect weather for that. This summer, our Social Action Committee, led by Annette, is collecting child-friendly foods such as tuna, mac and cheese, peanut butter and jelly, and low-sugar cereals, and baby diapers are also being collected. Now, for some sober news, here's a warning for everybody. I thank Peter for this information. The Secure Community Network, a reliable source, says there's an email phishing scam aimed at the Jewish community. That's where they send you a bogus email and ask you to send money or gift cards. Don't believe it, even if it seems to come from me or from the rabbi or from someone who sounds Jewish. It can be an imposter just looking to make money off of people's lack of sophistication. Delete that email. If you think it might be legitimate, get in touch with the person directly and find out. But who asks you for money over email, other than your daughter or your son? Tonight's Oneg is sponsored by Barbara Schwartz, so it's going to be good. And thank you, Dylan, for live streaming tonight's service. Shabbat Shalom.
We conclude this Shabbat journey about journeys with a Gaelic Jewish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you.
May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields, and until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of her hand. Lu תסתיר פנים הדרך, והרוח בצדכם תישור, והשמש תלטף פני הדור. גשמי ברכה על הכרמים, ועד שנהיה יחדיו. לו אדוני ישמרכם בכפיו.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.